welcome. I'm Lucy. Welcome to our How I Learned to Love My Data session. I'm Lucy. I'm the Communications Officer for the Place-Based Peer Learning Network. I'll just take a moment to self-describe. I have shoulder-length brown hair, a fringe, brown eyes, and I'm wearing a lilac and cream coloured jumper. I'm joined today by James and Jack from the Digital Culture Network. Our BSL interpreters are Claire and Vivi. Today is our first event in our How-To series on data and evaluation. These events are intended to be practical sessions to help build your skills, develop your practice, and solve any issues that you might have. They form part of the Place-Based Peer Learning programme, and the programme was co-created with representatives from creative people and places, local cultural education partnerships, and cultural compacts. The How-To series was developed in response to requests for expert guidance in skill building and problem solving, and forms one of the many types of events that we have as part of the programme. If you'd like to find more about upcoming events or connect with anyone in the session afterwards, just head over to our digital networking site, Hivebright, to find out more. And I'll take you and hand you over to James, who's our speaker for today. James Akers is Tech Champion for Data Analytics and Insight at the Digital Culture Network. Over to you, James.
Thank you, Lucy. So yes, I'm one of the Tech Champions at the Digital Culture Network, and I'll talk a bit more about what that is and how you can access support as well. But I'm a white middle-aged man, short brown hair, wearing an orange shirt today. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen and we'll get going. So I've spoken to hundreds of organisations over the last few years about data and how they might use it and what they're collecting and how they want to report on it as well. And through that, I've learned loads about data collection, data analysis, and then all the reporting, so the kind of 3 stages that you'll go through. But what we're going to talk about today is kind of a bit about what my journey has been and how I've got to where I am and my knowledge around this subject. And so hopefully it'll give you some insight about why I found it so important and why I do love data. You know, I'm absolutely geek when it comes to this stuff. I absolutely love it. So we'll get into that in a bit. And as Lucy says, this session has been recorded. So if you do want to ask any questions, feel free to raise your hand and you can come on screen, or you can use the chat facility as well. So if you want to ask any questions there, please pop them in the chat. We can answer them as we go along if it's relevant for that section, or we can just have a little Q&A at the end and then answer anything that you might have. So it might spark some ideas and thoughts that you might have. So to talk about the Digital Culture Network for a start, is that this is free support. So we have a team, I think we've got 13 of us now, of Tech Champions, all with different specialist areas. And we have come from outside the sector, from all the different areas of marketing and data and digital and things like that. So if you need support, just get in touch because we'll help you. So we'll put you in touch with one of the relevant Tech Champions to support you on your digital objectives and what you're trying to achieve, like looking at what platforms you're using, what methods that you're using in your organization, and where you're trying to get to as well. So we have Jack on the call. You'll see him later on when we get to the Q&A. Jack is our audience data and evaluation Tech Champion, and he can give you lots of wonderful ideas around capturing data, around surveying your audiences and all of that. And that's what the following sessions in this data series are about. So we're going to get to Jack later on, and you can join those sessions in the next few weeks. So what I've done is I've actually created a web page on our website, and within that are the slides for this presentation, so you can come back and reference to them, and also some additional links for stuff that's relevant to the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So please do check out that link. I'll just pop it in the chat for you now, so you can have a look at it. You can save that. That's there for you. So as I say, we'll put the recording on there as well as it will be on the Peer Learning website. So you'll be able to check it out again. So my first question for you, and you can come on camera and ask that and tell me, or you can pop it in the chat, is this one, which is, what is data? I'm using the matrix thing there just to go full geek on you. Any ideas? Pop in the chat. Stick your hand up. So Sarah says, information relating to facts about stuff. Yeah. Sajia says, a pathway to learn more. Yeah, great. Very conceptual, that one. I like it. Any more? Jack, look at that. It's information that can be quantified and interrogated. Ooh, that's very good. And it aligns quite nicely to what the dictionary definition of it is, which is this one. So when we talk about data, it's facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. And it's a big area. There's lots and lots of data. Ian has put in any metric that allows you to understand something better based on facts. Perfect, exactly that. So that's what we're looking at today. So it's a huge area of data, and when you're first approaching this in your organization, there's so much. Stop quickly. So from my journey, my career and my journey that I went on, so prior to this role as a tech champion, I worked at the University of Cumbria. So this is their website from 2017 when I first joined them. So I was there for about 2.5 years in that organization. When I went into that role, this is an organization working across 5 different campuses across multiple areas. So mostly in Cumbria, but they actually have a campus in London as well. And their range of courses was so broad, all the different areas that they provided courses and university courses at undergraduate level, at postgraduate level, and then they were doing like short courses as well, and trying to serve international students as well. So it's a huge objective of what they're trying to reach. It's so broad in that way that when I first went into that role, it's understanding what was being collected across all these different areas when it comes to specifically marketing in this role. And it's a massive, so it was all about discussing and speaking to different people in different teams and understanding what was collected where. And we're going to look through that in a minute. But in my team that I had, so I led a digital team of a customer relationship management specialist, an analytics specialist, and a conversion rate optimization specialist as well. So the role was very much data driven. So it's having specific key performance indicators we were trying to reach, so KPIs. And data really helped that role. So it's understanding where we wanted to get to and how we can use data to actually make that happen as well. So that's where it becomes important. And the kind of journey is in 3 stages, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the first step was actually understanding what was being collected in different stages. And there are 2 types of data. So there's internal data and external data. And in your organization, this is what you should do, is like review what this is and where you can find your data and where it's being collected. So for example, for internal, we have things like customer relationship management. So that is where records of the people that interact with you go. So it could be your audience members. So if you have you're collecting interactions with them, and it goes in there. Or it could be the partners you're working with goes into your customer relationship management. There are different areas of data that might go in there. And it could be things like their name, their email address, their physical address as well, things like that. So that's one type of data. You also have things like e-commerce data or ticketing data. So numbers of tickets sold, financial value, transactions, things like that. Marketing campaigns. So you might be running marketing campaigns, and I certainly was at the University of Cumbria. Your marketing campaigns that you're running are there's lots of data that you're collecting about that. So what is working well? Where is it? What platforms are you using? How much are you spending on these things as well? And then things about surveys. So as I mentioned earlier on, we've got Jack, and he'll talk in detail about those in the upcoming series of webinars that we've got after this. So the next 2 is all about surveying audiences and how to do it. And then we have things like website analytics as well. So although it's not, you don't know specifically who these users are when it comes to website analytics, you are collecting data about them. So geographically, where are they? What kind of technology they're using? What pages are they visiting on the website? What actions are they taking? And there's lots and lots of data points that you might have in your organization around all those things. So already your internal data set is huge. It's a lot to kind of look through and consolidate. And then we can look at external data as well. So it's looking at things like demographic information. So there's lots of data sets out there that can give you information about what certain regions, the demographics of people that are living there, what their interest, all of that. So it's available for you. There's also things like partner organisations you can get data from as well. So at the University of Cumbria, I was working with local partners to understand what they understood about the workforce needs for those areas and how the university could align what they're doing to the workforce needs. So there's actually a journey that people can go on if they came to university there. And there are, within arts and culture, the partner organisations, we've got things like the Arts Marketing Association, the Audience Agency, and things like Indigo. They're all providing reports about what's happening in the sector, and you can tap into that data to understand or focus on where you want to get to. There's also things like Google Trends as well, which I'll talk about in a bit. I'll show you some examples of what that is. That's looking at what the interest of audience members are trying to get to or trying to find as well. And yeah, sector support, as I mentioned, things like AMA, Audience Agency, Indigo. So if we look at that, this is slightly different, but when I was at University of Cumbria, it was much bigger as well. It's like huge different bits of data. Their student record system to understand a student's journey that they went through. So from foundation to undergraduate to postgraduate to then to CPD and short courses. It's a really long-term journey that people would go on with that organisation. So with your organisation, it might be a smaller journey, but it's understanding what that looks like for you in context to your organisation. So if we were to look at some internal data, another question for you is this one, which is where do you keep your data? If you'd like to stick it in the chat, there's some thoughts about where your data goes at the moment and from your different sources. Or please put your hand up if you want to give us something. Everywhere, says Jack. We've got cloud. We've got scattergun approach in different files on shared drive. Yeah. Like as I mentioned, we speak to organizations all the time, and we see a lot of this. Like there is just a disparate data set in different areas, and what I find when you're looking at these things is when it's unknown, when there is just data sat somewhere and you're not quite sure where it is, it's quite scary. It's worrying. It's like, well, what is it? Are we compliant by keeping it in that way? Is it are we subject to any liability because data is stored in some way? And if it's personal data, there is a lot of issues around that. If it's more anonymous data, it's not particularly as a problem, but it's something to consider as well. So the questions to ask in reviewing and auditing what you already have is, firstly, who has access to it? And then secondly, what happens if someone leaves as well? So there might be a lot of data and understanding about your audiences, but it's actually in somebody's head. So they're captured that, so they understand the relationships and things that exists, or where something is kept in a file, stuffed in a drawer on a USB stick and things like that. So considering your data is doing an audit of what is collected. And that's something that we can help with as well, is running a workshop with you and your people in your organization, just looking at what you're collecting. So this is an example from an organization in Bristol. And we went through, it was like about an hour and a half workshop that we did with several members of staff. But we just plotted out everything that they were collecting, and what platforms they were using, and what kind of data sat in each one. So you can see here, we've got the WordPress, which is used for their website and the content that they put on there. So there were user logins for that, and the data that sits within it. They had WooCommerce as their e-commerce platform. So there was transaction data within that. That would then go through Stripe for the payment gateway. And they used forms, Gravity Forms, to collect data about certain memberships as well. And then ticket sales were through Eventbrite. Their marketing list and their emails were through MailChimp. So by doing an audit, you can have a look at all the things that are being collected, and there's loads. It's huge area, but it's really worthwhile doing, just to understand your the like potential issues, essentially. Like by doing this, you can see, oh, we've got that system, and we can look at who has access to it, and there's people that don't work here anymore. So we want to remove any of that liability by cleaning that stuff up, and understanding what data sits within it and how useful that is for us when we're going to make decisions on the marketing or the approach that we're going to do for programming as well, that kind of events that you're going to put on. So that's internal data, just one example of that. And then we can look at some of the external data examples. We'll just go through some of those. So I mentioned earlier on, one of them is called Google Trends. So this is what is being searched for on Google search. And this data is available for you. And you can see here, I've typed pantomime as a search term. So, and I've set it to the last 5 years in the United Kingdom. So we can see that at certain times of year, pantomime is really highly searched. I don't know what happened in 2020, but any guesses? It all dropped off, and then it started to come back again when everybody could come back out again. And what you're able to do with data like this is search for demand or interest in certain topics. And you're able to build, when it comes to, like, for example, if you're going to use this type of data for programming, you could start to build different things at different times of year. So if we do a comparison with pantomime and festivals, you can see that normally, not this period, because that was just chaos, but like after COVID and everything opened up, everybody wanted to go to a festival again. But normally, in normal years, we can see that pantomime peaks from November through to January. And then in the new year, everybody wants to start looking at festivals, and it peaks at festival season and then goes off. And then obviously COVID period there, and then we've started to see that trend reappear. But what we've seen after this is that actually pantomime is far more popular than it's ever been, which is quite nice to see. It's using data in this way to then understand the trends that could happen, the seasonality of things that exist out there already. And there's lots of this kind of stuff available for you externally and available for free. So when you're thinking about data, it doesn't have to be all the stuff that you own. It can be external stuff that can help you make decisions on what you want to achieve. Another example, and I've added this in the resources, there's a link to this that you can see. So this is the Coventry Cultural Place Profiler. So what they did is collect this data set, and then you can access this online. Just anybody can access this to understand the profile of that region. So they can go down to different ward levels to look at if they want to reach a certain demographic. That's what their organizational objectives are. you can look at this data and go, right, our demographic that we're trying to reach is in these certain areas. So let's be really targeted in what we do and focus specifically on those. And we can get right down to those. I really recommend having a look at this and just playing around with it. I'm not sure if anybody here is in that region, but it's really useful. There are others as well. This is just one example. At the moment, in 2023, we're in the Leeds Year of Culture. And what they did from the outset is be really open with the data that they had available about what they were doing. So what we can see here is what has happened over that period. So we can, if you go to this website again, you can click into these different sections and see what schools have been engaged, things like that, in different areas. But because they've been so open with the data, they started off with very, very limited amount, and this is built over time. So it allows them over that whole year period of being the Year of Culture, they can develop and change what they're focusing on, so they can see that we've hit certain areas, we've put on events in certain things, we've got attendance in certain areas, but we need to put more effort into others. So it's allowed them to be more dynamic over the year about how they might program the stuff that they put on. But again, the really nice visualizations and the way that they display data in here is amazing. You can see here, the school engagement. So these are the different schools and the different cohorts and groupings that they have within those regions. So when it comes to this kind of data and what you might want to collect, because there's so much, the best way is to focus on just the stuff that's important for you. So thinking about your vision statement for your organization. So why do you exist? And what metrics can align to that to show you're on track for it? And you can ask two questions which will help towards this process. The first is, who is your audience? So who is it you're trying to reach as part of your vision statement? So for example, if your organization, you're trying to reach young people, that's what your focus is. What data exists that can show the right areas that you should be focusing on, or the methods that you might approach that grouping? So what marketing could you do to reach them? What programming could you put on to align to their align to what they want and are looking to experience? The second question is, what do you want them to do? So what actions do you want them to take with you? And those things can be tracked, and you can have data against them. It could be, I want them to attend this thing, so my metric is the number of people coming. Or it could be, I want them to go to the website that we have and download a resource pack that we've created. There are different types of metrics that you'll have for different actions that you want to collect. So it's just asking those questions. So who is your audience and what do you want them to do? You'll have different audience groups for different actions, and then you have different metrics to show you're on track for that. So again, this is definitely something that we can help with as well. If you want to have this discussion with us, we'll talk you through it, and we'll get there. We'll do some analysis about what your focus should be with this kind of stuff. So to go back to my role at University of Cumbria, this is what their website looks like now. Now I can't claim this. I was only there for 2.5 years, but the stuff that we worked on when I was there was working towards it. So this was what their website was when I joined. There's lots of information here. There's so much. There's so many routes that you could go down if you hit this website. Whereas by going through the process of who is our audience and what do we want them to do, it's much more succinct now. So when you hit the website and you're looking at the study section of the website, it's so simplified because the core actions that they want people to take, the work that's been done to define that and only focus on those has been is simplified things. Instead of having everything, it's actually, there's less options. So now if we go to the website and go to the study section, you can download the prospectus, you can book an open day, or you can have a web chat. They're the three main things that this website wants you to do now, and because those are the most important actions that the university wants potential students to take. Can we get their data in some way? So they're capturing information, because then can take them on the journey then. So by by booking an open day, they're capturing who they are, data that they can contact them, so their email address, and then where they're located as well, so their physical address. So by using these actions, they're collecting that data, and then they can take them on a journey. So there are, I wish I had a diagram of it, but the map of potential workflows, email workflows that came on the back of this was huge. So if you'd signed up and said, I'm interested in these courses, then there would be a series of emails tailored to you based on those courses. So it's an amazing thing, an amazing project to be part of, but that's all about using data to be more efficient and targeted for what the students would potentially want, and then move them on to the next step of the journey to then hopefully choose that university as their destination. So when it comes to reporting, so we've looked at reviewing the data you're collecting, defining what you want to collect against your objectives, and then the last part is about the reporting. So how can you share that? And this is a good quote. It's not even a quote. I just wrote it. If data provides answers, what is the question? So approaching any data that you have, and because it is powerful and it can answer a lot of questions, it provides those answers. What is the question that you're asking of it? And there are different ways that you might look at data or report on it. And there are 4 stages of it, which I'm going to talk through next. So I've got a graph here with the value going up and then complexity going across. And the first type of reporting that we see in this is descriptive. So that's looking back and going, what happened? So we see a lot of this type of reporting for funders that you might have. It's just like a snapshot of what happened over the last 12 months. And this is one example here using Venture Arts, is an organisation in Manchester. And they're using a data visualization tool, which is called Looker Studio. It's a really simple report. It's got their vision statement at the top. And this is just their website overview report using Google Analytics data, just saying how many users we had, how many people have signed up for a newsletter, how many people have got in contact, and how many people have purchased in the shop. Really simple report. It's a descriptive report of what has happened in the last period that you've looked at. The next stage of it is the diagnostic stage. So it's understanding why something has happened. So that report we just looked at was a fixed report looking back. To dig deeper into why something has happened, so if we want to see why we've seen a spike in people visiting our website, we can dig deeper into the data, and the type of report you might build for this is very different from the first one. So this is a screenshot from Google Analytics 4, and it's giving we at the Digital Culture Network, we tag every link that we send out through our newsletter and some of the stuff that we do on social platforms as well. So we're able to see specifically when people have visited our website, where did they come from, and was it stuff that we did ourselves? So you can see here we have, these are called campaigns. So we tag our campaigns up. So we have one for each newsletter. This is in a date range format here. And we can see how many users that we've had, and then how many people have gone on to convert to the thing that we want them to do. So at the Digital Culture Network, we want people to sign up to our newsletter, get in touch with Tech Champion support, or actually book in a session with one of us. And we can track those through our website to then see what has contributed to those conversions. So we can see spikes in traffic. We can also see if people are doing the thing we want them to, what is the best performing way that we're marketing or sharing or driving people to do that thing that we want them to do. So this is descriptive types of reporting. The next stage is predictive. So this is getting your crystal ball out and looking at what is going to happen. So we've looked at the first two are all about what has happened, and then why did it happen? And this one is what will happen, so looking forward. And that's the big change that we see is organizations moving from that first step through to this one. So when we look at predictive, this is one example using a checkout. So this is a ticketing system. As people move through the checkout stages, what stages are people dropping out? So you can see that lots of people are beginning the checkout. So they're selecting their tickets, moving through. They are massive drop off at this point. And then as they go through from the basket to the login page to purchase, it's actually not much of a dropout. So when we think about predictive metrics, is that if we got more people in at the top level, so drove more people to the website, drove more people to the ticketing pages, we know that already that X amount are going to drop off. So we can predict what's going to happen. The next stage after that is all about prescriptive, like how can we make it happen? So in that example that we just saw, there was a drop off there. So if we change that, if we proactively make a change, find out what the problem is or the motivation of those users, what can we do to actually change that? And we can move that number up, and then hopefully we'll see more sales, you know. And that's just a checkout funnel. There are loads of different user journeys that your users go on online that you might want to look at in that way. Now, for prescriptive, like how can we make it happen? One of our tech champions, Ollie, has been working with the Bath Philharmonia, and we shared examples of a marketing funnel in the past of the different stages that people might move through. So awareness of what your organization does, them considering you and whether they want to do the next stage, and then actually converting, like doing the thing that you want them to. And through that work with Ollie, Aaron, who works there, created this amazing customer journey and marketing funnel. And we loved it. It was just great to see that they're taking the learnings that they had from us and then actually building something. And what we can see here in this example is that they're setting goals for each stage to move people through. And this is where your metrics and data can come in, because on this last part is the measure at different stages. So you might be using your Google Analytics data at different stages. So overall, how many website views have we had? And then as people move down the funnel, we've now got views on specific pages, and then we go through down to ticket sales, and then revenue earned and all of that. So there are different metrics at different stages of the funnel that you might have. And again, this is in the resources, so you can have a look at this and see if it's something that aligns to what you would do. And there's a template as well that we've included, and you can have a go at putting in some things that might work for you. So it's a really good exercise to work through to understand the journey that people go with you, especially online and with digital metrics and digital platforms and different channels, is that they will do different things at different stages. And how can you use data to show that you're on track for where you want to get to and where you might want to put the effort? Yeah, so it moves down, we go through. What's great is that Aaron has outlined the journey up this end, and then what the funnel is, but then how specifically are they going to do each stage of it? So to build awareness, they're going to do some social media adverts, they're going to do a Bath magazine advert, they're going to do some posters and flyers. With physical media, it's hard to put a digital number on those. So they've got these, the metrics are, if people view it, they're probably going to search us out, and then they're going to probably come to the website. So it's this assumption that's the journey that they're going to go on, and that would come from understanding their users and how they normally interact with them. But yeah, as I said, you can have a good look through this. It's really interesting to, as a case study, an example of how you might structure some of the data that you collect in that way. So to summarize, it's in 3 stages. So how I learned to love my data is firstly, I audited the internal data collection, and I've done that in all my roles that I've had prior to this, and this is what I help organizations with. So sitting down with you, looking at all the systems you're collecting, what data goes in each one, and it might be that you stop doing stuff because it's like we're collecting data and putting it here. We never use it for anything. It doesn't show that we're on track for where we want to get to. So let's just stop collecting it. And it's so refreshing to do that, to step away and go, actually, we're just not going to do that anymore. It's quite nice. The second stage is looking at the external data. What exists out there that can help you on your journey of what you're trying to get to? And as I said, at the University of Cumbria, there were various data sets that really supported what we were trying to reach and how we were going to go about it. And then the third stage is actually simplifying all the reporting. We looked at the 4 stages that you can go on through that journey. And you might have one type of report that you share with funders. It's like, looking back, this is what we're going to get, this is what happened. And then you might have one that specifically you use, all about prediction and going, if we do this thing, we expect this is going to happen. And that's where you want to get to as an organization, to be data led in that way. So using the right metrics to actually show that you're on track, and then how you might change your actions or activity to do more of it, essentially, and have more of a positive impact. So that's it. That's the end of, it's quite a short one. These are our contact details. We are here to help. It's free. Use us as much as we want. And these slides and resources are available on this link. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to bring Jack in now, who's going to describe himself and then talk about his further sessions as well after the Q&A.
Hey there. Yeah, so it's just a quick plug from me. Obviously, we'll move to questions and answers in a moment. So if you do want to just pop any general thoughts, any comments, any questions into the chat for James or myself, that would be amazing. So I have the next 2 sessions coming up. So my background is in audience data collection. So I'm a kind of market researcher by trade. And yeah, it's essentially just about the first session that we've got on Wednesday, the 29th of November at 2:30. That's all about surveys and data collection, mainly face-to-face. So it's pitched at organizations that might be using their volunteers or staff to carry out surveys with people in person. It also has some stuff about the design of surveys, what it's best to focus on, what's important, and kind of how to sample and make sure that you're doing your data collection in a sort of semi-scientific way. It's accurate, it's representative. So fingers crossed, I can impart all of that. The next and final session in this series is on the 11th of December at 2:30 in the afternoon, and that's a bit of a looser session, which is all about obviously we're here on the place-based peer learning network, so it's about collecting data in public places. We're thinking about public installations, festivals, events in the streets, where it's more challenging to collect a traditional survey. So we're thinking about the ways that you could maybe count the number of people you are interacting with, maybe some shorter and more punchy methods to talk to people and monitor your impacts and what kind of outcomes that they're getting from your work. Now, I haven't actually created that session yet, so we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, please do sign up if that looks useful for you, or if it's going to be useful for your colleagues who are collecting surveys and things like that. Or you can access the recordings at a later date if needed. Great, I'll stop plugging now. Do we have any questions in the chat? And do you want to come back in, Lucy, just to handle this side of it?
Hi, yeah. Thanks very much, James and Jack. Really informative session. Having a little look in the chat. I haven't seen any questions come through so far. I don't know if anyone wants to raise their hand or pop anything in the chat if they would prefer. Jack, you raised your hand.
I'm back. I do have a question for James. So in the chat, we sort of talked about a little bit that data analysis is often a missing skill in organizations. It's not. It's one of the things that organizations often have the lowest confidence in. I'm just thinking about someone who's approaching it for the first time. What kind of are the basic tools and platforms that people might want to get started on? Where could they begin that journey?
I like web analytics as a first step because there is lots of data that it collects and it's self-contained in a certain platform. Usually it's Google Analytics that I help organizations with. So it's a good place to start, to just dig deeper into the data that it's collecting about assumptions about your audience that you might have, and then you look at the data in there about what they're looking at on your website is actually completely different to what you thought people were interested in, for example. And it does collect some demographic information, so regionally, where are they located, and what technology they're using. So as a first step, it's quite nice, and there's lots of resources around that as a platform to dig into, which is really nice. But you're right, it's the analysis part is the hardest. So I've spoken to people that do the collection of the data before, and they work, sometimes they're separate from the marketing team, for example. So they're collecting data from platforms such as the website analytics, and then the marketing team want to know what's useful. So the analyst or person collecting the data is asking, well, what do you want to know? And the marketing team is saying, well, what do you think is relevant? And that's the missing bit, is actually the analysis bit, or the focusing on the right metrics. So that's where it comes back to your organizational vision, and then getting the right metrics for your different stages of what you're trying to achieve, and then focusing on them, and just start with those ones, really.
Great. I don't know if you've got anything that you wanted to ask Lucy yet. I was just wondering, what are the common things that people kind of come to you for support about? What's the most common issue?
A common issue is well, firstly is about, I mean, it is really just collecting the right metrics is the number one thing. Some people come to me with specific platform issues. So they're using Google Analytics, for example, a new version that's come out this year, and they're struggling with getting used to that. So I help them set it up and collect the right data. So that's a huge part of what I do. But wider than that is actually aligning the right metrics to the strategy that you have, and configuring all those things to consolidate it. And it's kind of a three-stage process. So it's firstly auditing what you're collecting already, then defining what you actually need to know, and then it's setting up that tracking. So sometimes it doesn't exist already, the types of data that you might want to collect. So what platforms and tools do you need to collect the data you need? And then finally, it's that reporting and analysis part. So it's like a three-stage journey. And because of the way we support organizations, it can be that long journey. It doesn't have to be all in one. So you can come to us, have a chat about that first step, and then go away and work on it, and then come back to us a few months later and then work on the next stage. So we're here to support you through that long journey, and it goes across different specialisms as well. So we might, through the discussions we have, identify the priority areas that you could work towards, and then get in touch with new tech champions, because they're all really skilled, such as yourself, Jack.
Yeah, I think that is something that I've noticed, is there is this sense of panic that it's such a big issue, to sort out all of your data, your strategy, your organization's process, and how it works. It sort of can be quite overwhelming to people. And I think the fact that we give them space to breathe sometimes, it's okay not to have this sorted straight away. Maybe there isn't an easy answer today, but it's an evolving practice. You're maybe exploring what you can do with data, seeing what it shows you, and then seeing if it takes you in another direction, or maybe that informs back to your strategy. Maybe it's not working and you need to think about it and kind of keep on developing that. So I would just say, yeah, do speak to us, but also take that time to sort of to breathe and give yourself a rest. Don't try and solve it all in one week.
That's it, yeah. And Sadia was just put in the chat about articulating the story from numbers is a skill, and it absolutely is. I don't know if I've got it here. Hiding, but I've literally got a book which is called Storytelling with Data, and it's all about that. It's hard. It's hard to do, and it's hard to describe what the problem is and then what steps you need to take to resolve it. It might be, for example, we need more resource to do this thing. If that's our objective, we need more resource, and using data to tell that story. But again, it's stuff we can help with on a one-to-one basis if we need it.
Yeah, I think what I often see about that is sort of like it's storytelling, isn't it? It's taking people on a really clear journey through the data. So you don't show them 1,000 things that don't have any relevance and don't really tell you anything. It's sort of keeping it focused and just walking someone through the journey and showing them the most relevant pieces. Otherwise, the reports that you come up with are just impossible to digest. Yeah, well, that's it from me, I think. Unless we have any further questions.
No, I don't think there's any further questions in the chat, just some nice comments and thanks, and looking forward to future sessions as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Vivi, and thanks, Claire. And thank you, Jack, as well.
Thank you very much, everyone.